Connor, I'm depressed and a little angry.
Okay, yeah.
Welcome to Switching Rails.
Yeah, this is your host, Trenton.
This is your host, Connor.
Yeah. So Schindler's List.
Schindler's List. That is the movie for this week. So we're gonna switch it up a little bit, change our format. We're gonna start with recommendations so that any of you that haven't seen the movie can
know whether you want to.
Can nope off if you guys want to after
Yeah.
you've heard what it does have. We will not give a summary or anything or any kinds of spoilers.
So I would say, as far as recommendations on this one, this isn't a movie I would recommend most people see because they will enjoy it, but I do think it's a movie that most people should see.
Absolutely. As I was going to phrase it, as a human being, I don't think that I can recommend this to other equally human beings from the humanity perspective. Like, it shows a different side of humanity that I don't want to be reminded that exists potentially inside of me.
That's fair. That's completely fair.
So again, recommending, I would agree with Connor. Like, it is a harrowing experience. I don't think I have felt as many feelings as this one has made me feel. There are like very frequent pieces of nudity. There's some language, not a lot, actually. Yeah. There's a lot of killings, some violence. I feel like there's more killings than there is actual fisticuffs.
And I think the biggest thing about this is that, and we'll get further into it later, but it's the fact that in the back of your mind, you always know that this is based on things that actually happened. I
had to break myself out a lot of the times being like, hey, I know this happened, but like, it's not real.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
Like, it was real, which is awful.
But it's not what I'm watching on screen. Right?
Exactly.
And again, we'll get more into that. I actually have specific thoughts about that for some of the later questions. But as far as recommendations go, for just enjoyment, I think the only people that will really enjoy it that I would associate with are like history buffs.
Yeah, history buffs for sure. Again, it is a very well done movie.
Yeah.
So like movie connoisseurs,
maybe film students. Yeah.
Also, I do believe we'll enjoy it. And then if you do want to have what I feel like got me the closest to understanding the emotional impact of the Holocaust, because that's what it, not a spoiler, that's what it's about. I didn't know that until Connor showed up today.
Yeah.
Whoops.
All right.
What's the next one here?
How is our recommendation section feeling emotional? That's
Yeah, I know. It's rough. Alrighty, so does it deserve its place on the list? I absolutely think it does.
Absolutely.
I feel like it could go above 12 Angry Men.
Yeah. The only reason I would maybe say that it should be as low as it is only because of how
absolutely
negatively it impacts your emotions.
Absolutely.
And that's not a criticism of the film,
no,
right?
Like, but it's again, like, if you're going to put something on the most popular movie list, and then you do that to them, you can't go higher. I'm sorry.
This is only the second time I've ever seen this film, actually.
Oh, nice.
And that's why.
Yeah, because you're not going to watch this for fun. It's not going to be your go home and cuddle up and watch Schindler's
I've had
List.
a rough day. I'm going to watch Schindler's List. Yeah, no.
Yeah, or I've had too good of a day. I'm going to go watch Schindler's List.
Yeah,
exactly. I see some people doing that, maybe. If you do, please get some help.
Yeah.
Okay, so ratings. Sorry. Yeah, no, keep.
No, you deserve some of the joy in your life.
Yes,
okay.
At least some of it. You don't need to siphon it off just because you have joy. Please don't do that to yourself.
Yeah. So ratings on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So enjoyment was like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe a 5.
This one ranges so wildly for me. It's somewhere between a 1 and a 10 for enjoyment.
Absolutely. At basically any point in the movie.
Because On one hand, I find well done filmmaking fascinating. It's why I wanted to go into film in the first place.
Absolutely.
Right? And this is incredibly well done.
So well done.
On the other hand, it's making me feel a lot of emotions that I don't want to feel.
And it doesn't stop.
Which, the weird part is, with most films that have those kind of emotions, I can get some sort of grim enjoyment out of watching those really dark things.
Yes.
I don't get that out of this one.
Nope. There isn't anything.
Yeah.
Like
it's impossible to enjoy watching
Schindler's List.
I'm not going to say that. It's impossible to enjoy watching the atrocities that are occurring on screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas enjoying, like, for example, some of the more grisly scenes in the Godfather movies.
Absolutely. You're like, okay, this is a wow factor. This is like, wow, this is awful.
Yeah.
But they did it really well. It doesn't make you feel like your entire soul might be in question.
Right, yeah. Yeah. So that's...
So technical, though, I almost feel like giving this one a 10, technically, because of how it made me feel and because of how the shots were and because of exactly, like, what it did.
I didn't think that I would reach this point, but I'm looking at it and I'm going, this might be an 11 out of 10. Like, it's...
technically masterful.
Yes.
I think.
And because we don't have any questions that directly address this, I just really quickly want to talk about Spielberg and the fact that I think in...
Spielberg is the director.
Yes, he is. But I think he put out some really, really well done movies. And I think movies like this one are why he is considered so widely to be one of the greatest directors living.
Yes.
Despite the fact that if you look at his back catalog, he's got more mediocre movies and more misses than... At least together, at least together, than he does really, really good films. But films like this absolutely set him apart.
Absolutely. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So that is what we have to say without spoilers, at least.
Absolutely, yes. So if you want to keep watching, great. But this is where spoilers start. If you've liked what we've been doing so far, it's something I haven't done recently, is please subscribe, like, share it.
Yeah.
It's fun. All right, spoilers. Territory.
Yeah, so this is we're starting a new thing here where we are doing the summaries.
Oh, yes, thank you. You're right, summary. Do you want to do it?
But this one feels super difficult to summarize.
I can take a shot at it generally. So
go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, Schindler's List is the story of a Czechoslovakian. I thought it was Czechoslovakia. Is what it said he was from. When it was his hometown was in.
No, he's German. He specifically says it at the beginning.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
the guy says, "I'm required by law to tell you I'm a Jew." He says, "I'm a German."
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Literally in the movie. Okay. Well. Yeah. Sorry about that. So he's a German. A German man who initially is starting out seeing an opportunity for business in this war. He sees that Jews are marginalized and therefore relatively inexpensive labor, and goes and makes a factory and has some positive impact on Jewish life-ish.
Yeah.
And then it follows him and this group that he's hired throughout the escalation of the Jewish imprisonment and internment and encampments, and it follows the specific general, I'm going to say captain, I think he's more of a captain in this day and age, on the Nazi side, who's running the camp. And
Amon Goeth.
Yeah.
I do not remember what his official rank was, but he was a commandant.
Yes. I don't know what exactly that meant, but it was high, but not the highest.
Yeah.
and shows their experience there in that camp, and then eventually they're leaving that camp due to Schindler purchasing everyone to go and make ammunition until the war ends.
Huh.
Yeah, quote unquote.
Ammunition.
He doesn't actually make ammunition. The first thing he makes are ceramic pots, and then he goes to quote unquote ammunition, which he actually like tweaks his machine so they don't ever make any workable ammunition.
Yep.
For the 7 months until the war ends.
Yep. And
saves 1,100 people.
Well, and he basically spends all of his money on keeping these people from being sent to Auschwitz and keeping the factory to keep the factory from creating any real ammunition.
Exactly. So he makes a very large sum of money in the first 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah.
And then in the last quarter, or well, maybe the third of the movie, he uses that to go and save as many people as he can because he has grown as a character.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the summary that is Schindler's List, I think.
I think you did a great job of summarizing a movie that cannot be summarized.
That has no emotions in it. If I cry in this episode, I don't apologize. It needs it. Because goodness gracious.
I'm no longer watching the movie, so I feel very confident in saying I'm not going to cry now.
I don't know. I was talking about it with my wife for like 3 minutes, and I was very close. So we'll see. Hopefully, it is far enough away that I'm like,
All right.
Let's see how this goes.
So let's see.
Initial reactions. So my initial reaction was a desire to throw the remote at the TV screen after it finished. It made me angry. This movie made me sad and angry that this existed and happened, and that it is not fictional.
Yeah.
That the crimes against humanity at this level existed in real life.
It's interesting that you say that, because with what happens at the end of the movie, where we have Oskar Schindler basically telling the Nazis, you have the choice to kill everyone here, or you can go home as not a murderer, as men and not murderers. From there to seeing the Schindler's Jews repaying him as in the ways that they can, and from there seeing the funeral. Or I guess not funeral, it was the tribute.
Yes.
Memorial. The memorial, yeah. Seeing that progression leaves me with a very different feeling than I have watching some of the earlier scenes with, the Nazis that are
totally
laughing at the dehumanization of people. So yeah, it's really interesting that at the end of the movie you wanted to throw the remote, whereas by the end of the movie I feel an extreme melancholy and also a little bit of warmth from that ending.
Yeah. Which I feel is another very valid response to this movie. They did a really, really good job wrapping it up.
Yeah.
I feel part of what led to more of my emotional reaction is the fact that they went over numbers at the end.
Yeah.
A little bit. And he saved 1,000 people, which led to 6,000 people being alive because of that.
Yeah.
6 million people still died.
Yeah.
The fact that they have a memorial for this man who saved 1,000 people out of 6 million people that died infuriates me.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Just from
yeah. And I could totally understand that. But even with that, the fact that at the end
I have both of us here, which is nice.
Yeah.
Whew.
But even at the end where he's having that sort of monologue of talking about wanting to save one more person, I think that was what was really powerful to me.
Absolutely.
And
almost killed me.
I think while it is important to recognize that, yes, 1,000 in comparison, or I guess 1,100
Mhm.
in comparison to 6 million is a drop in the bucket. But the fact that he was saving that drop is still absolutely
Astounding.
incredible.
Absolutely astounding.
And so it's really hard for me to be angry
Absolutely.
at that. Earlier in the film, and this is the other thing that I really like about the way that they do the character arc, is you go from being relatively angry at this guy.
Schindler. Exactly. How are you this callous?
Yeah.
Like,
because he starts out as apathetic and, as you already brought up, callous, and very much almost a stereotype of the soulless businessman.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was watching somewhat closely on this because I'm like, this is not, having only seen it before, this is not the Oscar Schindler I remember.
Yeah, from this movie, from this impression.
And I realized that there is a turning point at the liquidation of the ghetto.
Yeah, that's one. Yep.
And then there is the second one, and the one where you realize that he has genuinely changed when he talks to the maid that Amon Goeth has when he has the conversation with her down in the cellar.
Yep.
And I think that is the point where you go, okay, this is a completely different character now. He is not the same person that he was before. And even there's a very short time after that where he still has the one lady that comes and asks for him to take in her parents.
Yeah, that's actually the turning point for me.
Yeah,
is when he goes and visits Storm, the accountant.
Oh, Isaac.
I think it's Stern or Stern.
Yeah.
Whenever he visits his accountant and rants a little bit there about, hey, like, I can't stop death from happening.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not trying to not say that you should be.
Yeah.
Sam exists. And then he goes and offers to go and bring the parents to his factory. That's the turning point in my heart.
I think because that
the obvious turning point.
Yeah. I think because that follows so closely on the heels of the conversation with the maid, and then the immediate next conversation with Amon Goeth telling him that true power is having every right, essentially, to deal out death and choosing to forgive instead. I think because that next part happened so quickly after, that I go, yeah, he's still kind of holding on to what he feels is the business that he needs to be running, but his heart has changed, and I guess that's how it feels to me. It feels that his heart has changed, his brain is just catching up.
Absolutely. I can see that totally.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's why I argue for that point.
Yeah.
The other option is completely valid. I have.
Speaking though of that like section where he goes and gives the advice that that's what true power is, and then seeing Amon, in the next 10 minutes, try it out and then fail miserably.
Yeah.
I thought was a very, very well done scene.
Yes, me too.
Out to me. Where he goes and gives mercy to 2 or 3 people, and then still shoots the kid that couldn't clean his bathtub.
Right. I actually saw something this time around that I hadn't seen before. And there is a strong theme of duality throughout this entire movie.
Goodness gracious.
And you even look at Amon Goeth as he relates to Oscar Schindler. And it will show a very similar scene with one of them and then sort of the opposite. So like Amon Goeth's I saw as like a perversion of what Oscar Schindler was doing. Absolutely. Right? And the fact that they even side by side, they are working, they're both doing work camps.
Exactly.
Right? And they're both in positions of power there.
Mm-hmm.
But you see the way that they treat the same issues, and there's just a complete twisting.
Yep, absolute complete twisting.
And it's very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I noticed is very often, and I wonder if this is part of what kind of fed into your anger on this, is they will show an atrocity,
mm-hmm.
and then they will immediately juxtapose it with a party.
Yeah.
Like this happens at least 3 times in the movie.
Very, very, very often. And you also still have the like 3-scene section of the wedding, and then Eamon beating up the maid.
Yeah.
And Helen, I think. And there's one other thing that
it's Oscar's birthday.
Oscar's birthday, exactly.
Yeah.
All at once, and that like does something to your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very
trying to like the amount of dissonance in this movie.
Yeah.
I feel is again masterfully done.
Yeah.
Like they make you feel like you need to be compartmentalizing your brain. You're not even one of the people doing the atrocities.
Right, yeah.
Like, just watching it, you need to go and try and separate yourself, because there's no way that someone could have all of this juxtaposition going on in their life and be sane.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Which I think eventually is what pushes Oscar a little bit more into, like, he...
Yeah. Because he's seeing everything firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the other thing.
Very much.
Yeah. Like, he watches the liquidation of the ghetto.
Yeah, from a mountain.
Yeah. And so I think having that... I forgot where I was going with this, but it's just a masterfully done movie.
Absolutely.
And it messes up my emotions, and not many movies do that.
No, I thought I was a relatively stalwart person. This is he did a very good job with throwing multiple things in here that make you question yourself, and it's very riveting though. It keeps you in the entire time.
Yeah.
Again, there's the to call like they use color very well. I think it's black and white with like little, 2 or 3 pieces of color, one of which being the girl in the red jacket.
Yes.
Who you then saw act like you kind of hope that maybe she made it out of the massacre of the ghetto alive, but you see her body being exhumed later on, and you're like,
well, and what's wild to me is the girl in the red jacket is a image that you see a lot when people talk about this movie, just in general, which tells me that it is something that a lot of people connected with.
Absolutely.
And I remembered it being in the movie a lot more frequently. Like, it almost feels like a through line.
It isn't.
It's like, in there for a total of 2 scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the liquidation of the ghetto.
Yeah.
And there's her body.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. That's all that's here.
And that's just, it's so wild to me that's...
They did a really, really good... And I feel like it's on both sides of Halfway Point as well.
Yes, I believe so.
It's a thing that ties both the quote-unquote like first half and the second half together.
Yeah.
And like in that first part, it's when when Schindler is, again, having that first realization of like, wow, this is kind of awful. And then he's already there, very much so, when he sees the second body, where he's like, wow, this can't keep going on. This is atrocious.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I didn't notice that in relation to his character, but I definitely think that was almost certainly intentional.
Yeah, almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then the only other color I can really remember is the candles at Sabbath when they're in the new factory.
Yes. And I have no clue what the significance of that was.
I almost like part of me feels like it's a because right after that you start seeing the guards and like you see the guards in the same kinds of bunkers that you were seeing the women when they were telling the stories of being gassed. And again, duality, like they put that in there, and I feel it's a moment of remembrance and of like potential understanding and hope. Like adding that color is a very, very small amount of right in a wrong situation.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that just hit me that could be, I don't know, maybe, there is very little that we see of the Jewish faith throughout this film.
Yeah, very little.
And what we do see is with those candles and the fact that it's the very first shot of the movie.
Which is in full color.
No, the first shot isn't.
The first shot was. I thought the
movie... Oh, it was?
Yeah, the first scene where there's multiple Jewish celebrations. It has what I believe to be full color. Like there's yellows, there's browns and more textures and things like that. We'll have to go and not watch it again.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to watch that again for at least 3 years.
No, I completely agree.
But the idea that second shot is after essentially Oskar Schindler has no more boundaries around what he is allowed to give to the Jewish people.
Yeah.
And the fact that at that point, he has told him, it's Friday, the sun's going down, what are you doing?
What are you doing? It's the Sabbath, almost. Get prepping.
And so the idea that was the point at which they could reclaim their faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that could be the significance of the color there. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of things that I feel like it's
because like you don't need it. I feel like these conversations are a little bit like what they're trying to like push into your brain. Like, hey, why did we do that? Think about it.
Yeah.
Like this is a Whew.
So yeah.
Awesome. So we've covered a few things. We've covered standout scenes. We've covered some themes. Are there any other scenes or themes that you like think back to and are like, wow?
There are a few scenes that do that for me. I think, as weird as it sounds, and I don't know why this is one of the ones that sticks with me, it's the scene where Ammon is with his maid in the cellar having the conversation with her about like maybe that this is all what's wrong, and like everything around us is wrong, and you know we should be together, and then like he blames her for the seducing conversation that he
is having with
essentially
just himself.
Imagined with her.
Yes.
And I don't know why that scene sticks with me. I think part of it is because we've seen how brutal and cruel he can be.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you don't feel that she's safe through that entire thing.
I thought she was dead.
Yeah.
After having the shelf thrown on top of her.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, nope. That sucks. Well, at least Schindler is right. He didn't shoot her. Like, that was going through my head at that moment. Like, and he was fairly obsessed with her because, again, that was the one Jew he didn't want to sell to Schindler.
Yeah.
At the end when he's moving everyone.
Well, and I'm thinking back, I caught something this time that I hadn't seen before. It was that he is hanged at a sanitarium at the end of the film, which feels strange.
What are sanitariums? Is that like an insane asylum?
It's an asylum.
Okay, I thought so, yeah. Makes sense. He's a little wonky.
So thinking of that in the way that, like, that the first time you watch through that, you go, like, she's not saying anything, and he's filling in her conversation for her. because he thinks he knows what's going on in her head, right? This time, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure that he thinks he knows what's going on in her head. I think he may actually just think that that's what she's
thinking. Like, he is drunk again.
Yeah.
Like, I get if I was a different person, I feel like I would I already do resonate very deeply with Schindler. Like, if I was put in that same situation there at the end, and like, hey, I've been keeping myself focused on the goal. The goal is save as many people as I can. Save the people that I have, keep them safe.
Yeah.
And then that goal is accomplished, and you are crushed by the fact that you could have done more. But he is very single-mindedly focused on the saving like the people that he currently has, that like he feels like he was blinded to the possibilities of doing extra. Like, he grows a lot in this.
Yeah.
And not painlessly.
Right, yeah. And I think that is one thing that I do really appreciate about this film, among the other things that we've already discussed, is it shows the difficulty of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Most films don't, at least in my experience, and I would say most stories don't.
Just not to this level. Like, they kind of throw in elements, but...
Yeah, there are things that are painful that cause you to grow a lot of times in stories, but it's very rare that the growth itself is hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say this is one of them.
Yeah.
You know, this is one where his idea about basically using people for cheap labor being broken down piece by piece by piece
until the very end, where he's like, hey, I'm...
and building up. Yeah. And
like the... no.
But building up the idea that these are people that need to be taken care of, and I have the ability to do that.
And I have the ability to do that. Like, he has a privilege and opportunity.
Yeah. And because I have an ability, I have a responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
In other words, this is the first Spider-Man film.
Yep. Before most other... No, not before most other. When was this made? Early 2000s?
I want to say it was like 93.
93?
I think. I might be completely off.
Check it after.
But I do know it was before I was born, but not a long time before I was born. Yeah.
Liam Neeson did look really young, so comparatively.
I mean,
like Phantom Menace and stuff.
Phantom Menace was 2001. No, it's not. It was 97.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it still in the 90s?
Yep.
That's insane. That's insane. Also, I liked his change in perspective of, like, at the very beginning, he kind of understands that he's offering these people, like, better than they would have gotten otherwise. And he feels like, hey, that's cool. I did this. Like, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
By the end, he is like, no, like,
yeah,
I was able to help facilitate this. You guys are the reason that you're here. Like,
right, yeah.
I provided you a safe haven and you kept with it.
Like,
it is not me that did this.
Yeah.
And that was really, really, really cool and humbling to see.
Yeah. The other scene that has stuck with me in a very strange way has been the fire hose scene.
Yeah. Okay.
Where clearly he is trying to do a kindness.
Yes.
And the fact that no one else sees it
as like a kindness.
Yeah. It's seen as a cruel joke.
Yes, exactly. Like, hey, here's some hope you're all going to go to the gas ovens.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that you're cold now.
Right. Well, that wasn't. It wasn't just for cooling. It was the fact that they were all dehydrated.
Also that.
But yeah. Anyway, not the point. It is very strange to see, and I guess some of it may just be the idea of people as less than human.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as someone who cannot wrap my head around how you can think that way. It's really hard for me to understand why you would see that as anything but a kindness.
Exactly. But as Eamon?
Yeah.
Says to the maid in the cellar, like, you are less than human, so like
right, yeah.
Whoa. Or you're not quite human or something like that. Like a real person, I think is what he says.
Yeah.
But whew. So one technical thing though that did, like, thankfully at points break me out of the immersion was the amount of like upward spurting blood.
Oh.
That you see, like, hasn't been popular in movies for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it depends on your...
Depends on the movie, I guess.
Well, yeah, it depends on the movie and depends on your geographical location of filming.
Really?
Sometimes.
That's really funny, actually.
I mean, Japanese films have always loved their spurting blood, and they continue to this day, and it makes them fantastic to watch.
So that
because they're never brutal like this.
No.
They're always like these high-octane, like really fun action movies.
Exactly.
And so the spurting blood is just like, cool.
That's great.
Totally cut that guy's arm off, and now blood shooting across the room. Yeah.
But almost all of these were headshots, and almost all of them had random spurting blood that I was like, okay, hey, that's something that can help me break the immersion a little bit.
Yeah. That doesn't break the immersion for me. I think some of it may be because when you have put yourself into as many movies as I have and have kind of got yourself immersed in them, stylistic choices like that almost just put you in a different world rather than putting you in...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
An AU instead of like, hey, this is the real world. This is things that are happening in an alternate reality.
I mean, it's kind of the same idea of watching things in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could still get immersed in those things. It's just
it's a different world.
This is black and white world.
Yeah.
You know, things aren't going to look the same.
All movies, except for maybe documentaries, are fiction in that sense, which is kind of interesting.
I have some thoughts on documentaries that I will discuss with you later.
That's great. I have a documentaries episode.
Maybe. I don't think I have enough to say about them for a full episode. So
one thing about this format is we don't have a good way of like ending now, because like recommendations were a good way of like
that's true
trying to start wrapping up. I'll have to find another thing that's similar here.
Yes, but I think Have You Seen Next Week's Film is still good for that.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes.
Either way, technical things that stood out to you, other than the blood spurting out of...
Yeah, that was the main one that, like, because otherwise you don't think about technical things. And I feel like that's a point of, like, or at least I did not think about very many technical things in that one, where, like, besides the colors were obvious, like, and we've touched on that. Otherwise, I didn't have enough emotional bandwidth or mind power to notice as many technical things.
There were two things that I noticed.
Okay.
One was the use of shaky cam. Specifically when people were on vehicles being moved.
Oh, good point. Okay.
The two that are really stuck in my head right now is the one where they have the physical training, or not training, but the physical testing.
Yep.
And then they secretly cart off all of the children. And there's a shot from inside the truck where you see all of the people rushing.
Running. Oh, that was very well done.
And there are less and less and less until you just have the one woman who is there, and the camera's shaking all over the place, and like there is a very strong feeling of desperation in that. And I think that was incredibly powerful.
Agreed. Yeah, good technical thing.
The second one of those was in the train where they're going to Auschwitz and there's the child outside. And when it's in the train, it's so shaky, you're not entirely sure that you saw what you thought you saw.
You had no idea, and it does do the replay.
And it does the replay in very slow motion.
Slow motion.
It's just really interesting. Like, it is not often in this film that we are dropped into somebody's head.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the fact that you are dropped into that woman's head and you know that you're dropped there for that brief second is also just really, really
very
powerful.
Like, hey, we had this hope. We're talking about cool foods that we're going to have.
Right, yeah.
We haven't had in a while.
We're going to have soup and bread.
Exactly. There's some potatoes.
Yeah. Meat, potatoes, and bread. Yeah. And that's not how you make a certain dish. I didn't catch what it was, but that was the conversation.
Oh, yes. That was the conversation, exactly. And they were very excited. Like, there was hope and joy, the same kind of hope and joy that you saw mirrored in the men's train whenever they were being taken.
Right, yeah.
And then the realization that, hey, we're not where we're supposed to be.
Right, yeah. The other technical thing that stood out to me, and I guess all of these are going to be camera related,
you like
but
cameras?
I do like cameras. Actually, I have one edited as well. So also the scene with the physical testing with the record player and the people running naked in the circle on the curve of the record player.
Oh, same direction.
Well, I think they're going opposite directions.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're right. Nope, you're right.
And I think at that point in the film, it almost feels like you're watching like documentary footage of
absolutely
what was happening in those camps. And that shot just kind of puts it in like a weird Twilight Zone kind of place.
Very Twilight Zone-y.
Of like, it feels like it's something that should just be being projected onto this record player, but also like it's right there.
It's right there. It's happening right next to it.
And that's a really weird feeling. This is a movie full of weird feelings for me.
So many weird, and very much on purpose. Like they try and like traumatize you.
Yeah.
In this movie in as many ways as they possibly can.
Right. Yeah. And I would say this is one of the movies that I think is most powerful that's going to be on this list.
Absolutely. And that makes sense to me.
It's far from the most traumatizing for me, which is very strange.
Well, that's good.
And I think some of that is because we aren't put into the position of the people very often in this.
True. Like they don't encourage you to like put yourself into like a Jewish person's position or even a German's position. You were just watching.
Yeah. And I think that's why when I watch this movie, I feel more of a sense of depression and melancholy rather than like a horrification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is very strange. I feel like I should be horrified by this.
Exactly.
And I am by the idea of what happened here, but I'm not. The film itself doesn't horrify me, and that's just, it feels like it should.
It really does.
The only other thing that stood out to me this time was the editing in the scene with the boy scrubbing out the bathtub, and the realization that Amengoeth has that this just isn't who he is.
Yeah,
like
he's the power that I was looking for.
He isn't an emperor that has the power to forgive. He's something else.
He's a prison warden.
And the fact that we watched the boy in 3 separate shots before the gunshot is even taken at him.
Yeah.
Right?
3 gunshots.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But like we have that first shot when he's walking down the stairs and we're like, okay, he's leaving.
Yeah, but at that point you're like, oh, he's
and the
dead.
second time you see it, you go, what's going on here? Something bad is going to happen. You don't necessarily know what. And then there's the third one, and he misses. We haven't seen him miss ever.
Not yet. Like,
and so the fact that
and twice.
Yeah. which feels weird.
Very weird.
And then when he's actually killed, it's off screen.
Yep, off screen.
And it's just
which all the other ones were on screen as well, which is
Sorry, I keep going over scenes, but I've got one more.
Okay, perfect.
The dread that at least I feel, and I think most people feel, in the scene where the guns are constantly misfiring.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw that and just sitting there waiting for it to happen.
And
it's
humorous at first.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is a comedy. But I can't laugh, though.
Yeah,
like,
no.
What are you doing
I guess
to me here? And then it keeps going. You're like, when's it going to happen?
Yeah. I think it doesn't make you want it to have happened, but you just want that scene to be over.
Yes. It drags you along just on the ground.
Right, yeah. Because if he was dead, he wouldn't be dreading getting shot anymore.
Yep.
And the fact that he still is, and he pulls the second gun, and you're like, okay, it's just going to be done. And it's still, yeah. It's a very, this is an emotionally draining movie.
Absolutely.
It just is.
Yep. Nope. It's not anything good.
Jeez.
It's all bad. There's nothing good.
I feel like your opinion of this movie has dropped as we've had this conversation. At the beginning, you were talking about it being really good.
It's a very good movie, but there's nothing good about it. Nothing good.
All right. Well, next week we're gonna be watching.
Thank goodness.
We're gonna start on the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, we're doing that a little differently.
Yes. So, Return of the King is supposed to be the next one on our list.
Mm-hmm.
But because the entire trilogy is on there, we're going to start with Fellowship.
Yeah.
Because I think with movies
it's really nice
like this, it's really nice to watch them chronologically, but I feel like sometimes the context from the movies before are important for
and that's what I mean chronologically.
Yeah.
It's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
It isn't 3, 1, 2 like it is on IMDb.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I'm very excited for that. I've watched Lord of the Rings so many times. It was one of the movies that I mentioned in the intro. So, very excited for it.
All right,
delicious.
yeah. So,
we have work cut out for us, though.
Yeah, we are.
Are we into short movie territory after this?
No, we've got Pulp Fiction after this.
I don't know how long that is either.
It's like 2:45.
That's better than the 3.5 of today and the 4 hours that we're going to be doing for each of the extended.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, so we've got I guess shorter movies coming.
Yeah, that's nice.
They're not short though.
No, they're not short. They aren't. So thank you, man.
But yeah, how do we end this?